Strength and endurance changes are common in runners with Achilles tendinopathy, but is it the gastrocnemius muscle or the soleus muscle that plays a bigger role in these deficits? A study published by Seth O'Neill, published in Physical Therapy and Sport, looked at whether the strength and endurance deficits seen in those with Achilles tendinopathy was due to either the gastrocnemius muscle or the soleus muscle. To be included in the study, the runners have had to have ran a minimum of twice per week. The exact distance that they ran was not used in this study because there was so much variation in training load among the runners. There were 39 runners that had the diagnosis of Achilles tendinopathy and 38 runners that served as control who had never had Achilles tendinopathy symptoms before. To be diagnosed with Achilles tendinopathy in this study, there were a couple criteria that had to be met. There had to be localized mid-portion Achilles tendon pain for a minimum of 3 months. There also had to have been pain with activity such as walking or running. They also looked at whether there was pain with palpation of the Achilles tendinopathy. And then finally, they also looked at ultrasound changes that occur to the structure of the Achilles tendon. What the study found was there were large deficits seen between the non-injured runners and the runners with a diagnosis of Achilles tendinopathy. The largest deficit was seen during eccentric loading with the knee extended. When the study looked at the contributions of the gastrocnemius muscle and the soleus muscle, what they found was that the gastrocnemius muscle that contributed to about 3.7 to 11% of the strength deficit found, whereas the soleus muscle was 23 to 36% of the deficit. So the soleus muscle played a much bigger role in that strength deficit. When they looked at the injured runners, when they looked at their non-injured leg and their injured leg, they found that there was not a difference in that strength deficit, so both of them had a decreased output in strength when compared to the non-injured runners. The study also found significant differences in endurance between the non-injured runners and the runners with Achilles tendinopathy. The way that endurance was measured was the total work performed, so basically force times distance. So when they looked at the values, the symptomatic leg produced 1,313, whereas the non-injured leg was 1,490. When we looked at the control group, their mean was 1,926. So there was not that big of a difference between the symptomatic and the non-symptomatic leg, but when we looked at the group as a whole compared to the non-injured group, there was a significant difference. The authors concluded that because the strength and endurance deficits were seen bilaterally in those with Achilles tendinopathy, rehab shouldn't focus to strengthen the injured leg to the non-injured leg's values. Instead, we need to use normative values, which we can see from this article. Also, because the loads placed on the Achilles tendon are high during running, we need to use heavy external load during the rehabilitation process to strengthen the Achilles tendon and calf muscles to what they're going to be exposed to when we run. When they looked at the non-injured runners, they were able to produce 2 times their body weight for eccentric contractions when the knee was bent and just shy of that when the knee was straight. So in the rehabilitation process for Achilles tendinopathy, we should be aiming for them to be able to produce 2 times body weight for eccentric contractions. A couple of thoughts on this study. In this study, they didn't ultrasound the Achilles tendon of the non-injured group. When we look at some of the literature, a study by Holfish looked at the structural integrity of competitive runners compared to non-runners. And what they found that there was evidence of structural compromise in the competitive runners, even though they were asymptomatic. And then when we look at a systematic review by Drew, they found that the improvements from therapeutic exercise for those with Achilles tendinopathy were not related to the structural changes. And so it kind of leads us to the question of, why are these people with Achilles tendinopathy having these strength deficits if it's not for the structural integrity of the tendon? And then also, why are some people having these structural changes but they're asymptomatic while others are symptomatic? There was a paper by Ebony Rio which looked at whether the pain in tendinopathy was physiological, so related to the changes in the tendon, or pathophysiological. And what they found that there was evidence for both mechanisms. So we really don't know why some people go to develop Achilles tendinopathy and some don't. The study by Seth O'Neill also found that the soleus muscle produces a similar amount of force with the knee straight compared to the knee bent. When we look at the gastrocnemius muscle, it produces significantly less force with the knee bent. And so we know that the soleus muscle has an important role in Achilles tendinopathy, but will actually isolating the strengthening component to just the soleus lead to better outcomes? Maybe, maybe not. The eccentric loading protocol and the heavy slow resistance protocol both include straight knee and bent knee variations, so we're likely strengthening the soleus muscle with both of these exercise programs. In summary, there are strength and endurance deficits seen in runners with Achilles tendinopathy compared to those runners without Achilles tendinopathy. The strength and endurance deficits were mainly attributed to the soleus muscle. It's vital that when we're creating a rehab program for Achilles tendinopathy that we include external loads in the rehab program so that way we can increase the capacity of the Achilles tendon and also the gastroc and soleus muscles as well. Thank you for watching this episode on strength and endurance changes seen in runners with Achilles tendinopathy. I hope that you found this information useful. If you did, go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. If you want to see more of my content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to be notified of future videos, hit the bell icon as well. If you're a runner, go ahead and let me know in the comments below what you're currently training for. And as always, see you in the next video.